Good morning, security gang, and welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast, our final one for the month of July, July 31st, 2025. Packed show for all of y'all today. A lot to talk about on the show. Some merger and acquisition news at a price. I'm boggled by it. And literally, talking to town, because I'm in Israel, talking to town. I was right under Palo Alto's offices pretty much most of the day yesterday. Not because of this, but I had meetings in the area and all of that. And so this was a definite topic of conversation. We'll get into that and so much more on this morning's show. So before we do, join me for a coffee cup cheers for everyone watching us live on YouTube, LinkedIn, X, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch. And if you're listening after the fact on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, or if you're watching us later, thank you all for being part of the greatest cyber community on the planet. Coffee cup cheers. Okay. We're going to kick off with this IBM report. So the IBM data breach report has been around for about 20 years. It's Verizon DBIR goes into a whole lot more detail, but there's one statistic that stands out of this year's report. And it's the fact that all over the world, costs associated with data breach have fallen, dropping to 4.4 million from 4.88 million in 2024. So that's about 10% decrease in the cost. However, in the United States, that cost was close to $10 million, meaning nearly double. And when you ask yourself, why is the cost double? You can look at what's driving the cost of a data breach. What a lot of people don't know is 60% of the cost of a data breach is primarily legal, because you've got to notify 50 different US states, a whole bunch of territories. You've got to go through a whole, it's complex. If you've never been part of one, you wouldn't understand it. Steeper regulatory penalties and the rising cost of detection systems. But detection systems don't apply to the cost of a data breach. The cost of the data breach is only applied, or at least in math, should be the IR response, the forensics cost, the notification cost, and the recovery and restoration cost. That's it. So if that cost is close to $10 million, that's significant, because that's showing that we're double the cost of anywhere else in the world. And one has to ask themselves, why? The breaches that ranged from 3,000 stolen files to more than 113,000 covered organizations across 16 different countries and regions. IBM noting that the global average would have been lower if not for the numbers seen in the US. So we see that if you take a look at the Middle East, the cost of the data breach gone down. It was 8.75 million in 2024. It's 7.29 million in 2025. Canada's breach cost went up. Again, more regulation. Wherever you see more regulation, you see that cost go up. The UK, Germany, Latin America regulations went down. France, down. Asia Pacific, that's Australia, Australia's cost went down. ASN up. Japan down. Italy down. So we're seeing the costs really go down. The healthcare industry saw the highest cost for breaches. That's no surprise. That's consecutively they've been leading the way at 7.42 million. So we're seeing that there as well. And this comes into a few different aspects for us as practitioners. One, if this is the cost of the cost of a cyber breach, then what does the underwriting of my policy looks like? Meaning, is a $10 million policy efficient anymore, or am I having to go up a roof and go to $15 or $20 million in cyber insurance coverage for my organization, and in some cases more? And in the last several weeks here on the show, we've talked extensively about the Marks and Spencers, the Clorox lawsuit against Cognizant for $380 million. That's the losses that they had. Marks and Spencer reported a $400 million loss. All of those things come into play now to actually see the real impact of data breaches as it's going there. And so when we see this is a great conversation with the CFO. It's a great conversation with the board and the CEO. Cost of data breaches in the US has gone up. Now, will the Trump administration's deregulation, maybe potentially one unified AI federal law, and then potentially maybe data breach notification will all kind of come together there, hopefully. And you can start to reduce the cost in terms of regulatory filings. Since regulatory filings amount for about 60%, could you reduce the cost by nearly half? Because you get rid of a lot of those lawyer fees that are billing at $5,000-6,000 an hour. All of that could be 100% possible. So we see that there, and keep your eyes locked in on the report. We'll have the link available on our website. So I'm going to go through ShinyHunters. These are the guys that have been behind the data breaches we've recently talked about at Qantas, Allianz Live, LVMH, and Adidas. And they've been using voice phishing attacks to steal data from Salesforce CRM instances. Google's threat intelligence group warned that the threat actors tracked as UNC 6040 were targeting Salesforce customers in social engineering attacks. They impersonated IT support staff in phone calls to targeted employees, intending to persuade them into visiting Salesforce's connected apps setup page, where they were told to enter a connection code, which linked a malicious version of Salesforce Data Loader OAuth app to the target's Salesforce environment. In some cases, the loaders component was renamed to My Ticket Portal and made it even more convincing in the attacks. Google saying that these attacks were usually conducted through phishing, and credentials and MFA tokens were also stolen through phishing pages that impersonated Okta login pages. I mean, again, they've gone after Louis Vuitton, Dior, Tiffany & Co. Each have disclosed unauthorized access. Tiffany Korea notifying customers that they breached a vendor platform used for managing customer data. So going after the Salesforce objects, they're doing it brazenly by targeting the weakest link in the chain where there's no controls in place. And I talked about this on the show yesterday. Controls. Talked about scattered spider. Now we're talking about ShinyHunters. All of this is around controls. Who am I speaking with? Let me authenticate. You're from the IT help desk? All right, what's your name, person from IT help desk? Who are you? Let me validate that you are who you say you are. What's our secret word of the day, Mr. IT help desk? Oh, you don't know what it is? Okay, I'm sorry. Let me call the help desk myself and connect with you there. What's your extension? Right? Those are things we should be empowering our employees to do. Yes, they slow stuff down a little bit, but that extra 30 seconds to 1 minute is monumental, especially considering the cost of the breach is going up, right? So all of those things go in, and when we start to look at it from a business perspective, from an EBITDA perspective, then we have to look at it from this point of view, adding a little bit more controls, just a process, a kind of zero trust architecture to the human on the phone goes a long way to prevent this stuff. But that's not the only thing. SafePay ransomware is threatening to leak the 3.5 terabytes worth of data belonging to Ingram Micro, allegedly stolen from the cyber attack that occurred earlier this month. On July 5th, SafePay said that they were behind the incident at Ingram Micro. SafePay is a private operation surfacing back in September of last year. It's added 260 victims to its leak site, so it's very, very active. They're also known for stealing sensitive documents before encrypting victim systems and threatening to leak the stolen data on the dark web if no ransom was paid. SafePay has become one of the most active ransomware groups, filling in for Black Cat and Lockbit, who were really kind of the shining stars of 2024 in terms of ransomware operations. Ingram Micro said they suffered a global outage that was caused by the SafePay ransomware attack. Now they're learning the company's been working on restoring VPN access to employees. They've performed a company-wide password and MFA reset, but now they obviously negotiations have broke down. That's the typical threat that comes in right before the last offer is made. And then if that offer is unsatisfactory, we'll see the leak take place within 24 to 48 hours. So just keep that in mind. Dollar Tree are denying a claim that they were breached, saying the data that they're attributing to Dollar Tree actually belongs to now the defunct 99 cents only stores who declared bankruptcy last year after inflation put them out of business. The files appear to have involved former 99 cents only store employees. Dollar Tree's involvement with 99 cent only stores is related to the purchase of selected real estate lease rights following their closure. We didn't acquire their corporate entity, system networks, or data. Any allegation of Dollar Tree's involvement is inaccurate. So, again, that's a way to try to leverage the cost of data, by the way, to say it's Dollar Tree, and hoping that works. Obviously, the attackers didn't understand the dollar store system in America. and they haven't been here. When inflation went rampant and 99-cent stores and dollar stores no longer had products for $1, or if they did have products for $1, they were half the size of what they used to be. The value just was not the same in order to keep prices low. So all of those aspects there. Dollar Tree, good for them, coming out clear and crystal. We move to China, where patents by Silk Typhoon's linked Chinese companies is shedding light on Beijing's offensive hacking capabilities. This is coming after Sentinel-1's threat researchers are pouring through recent Justice Department indictments of Chinese attackers and mapping out the country's evolving web of private companies that are used to launch cyber attacks on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party. The report focuses on intellectual property rights filing by the Shanghai FireTech, a company the DOJ says works on behalf of the Shanghai State Security Bureau. The company was allegedly involved in many of the Silk Typhoon attacks and was identified as part of the Hafnium attacks seen in 2021. Researchers also found unseen patents on offensive technologies tied to Shanghai FireTech, according to Dakota Carryover at Sentinel Labs, telling our friends over at Recorded Future that the company serves other offensive missions not tied to the Hafnium cluster. The company also has patents on a variety of offensive tools that suggest the capability to monitor individuals' homes, like intelligent home appliance analysis platforms, long-range household computer network, intelligized control software, intelligent home appliances, evidence collection software, which could support surveillance of individuals abroad as you buy tech produced in China. While returning the supply chain to the U.S., diversifying the supply chain, President Trump's plan is even more critical in order to really tackle China. But you can't tackle China head on before really distributing the supply chain, creating more opportunity for people to produce tech in other countries that's not made by China, in allied nations, in order to really eliminate these threats. And again, two things could be right at the same time. The Chinese are a national security threat. Also, until we find better substitutes to China's supply chain because of the integration of then President Nixon of China into the global economy, thinking that that's the way to beat communism, it eventually rose communism, and now we see where China is. So all of this comes into play, a little history lesson here at it. But you have to understand that what we're seeing now from China is a organized private public sector partnership around offensive cyber operations. And that is something that we should definitely be paying attention to as practitioners. The Python Software Foundation warning users this week that threat actors are trying to steal credentials and phishing attacks using a fake PyPy website. PyPy is the repository for Python packages. It's accessible at pypy.org. That's pypi.org. I know some people call it PPI or something like that. PPI, whatever. I don't know. A whole bunch of different names for it. Doesn't matter. I call it PyPy. PyPy has not been hacked. Users are targeting by phishing attacks or attempting to trick them into logging into fake sites in order to get access to those repositories. Once they're on those repositories, then they try to manipulate those libraries in order to build backdoors. So something to keep in mind as well. Apple, for their end, releasing a security update to address a high-severity vulnerability that's being exploited in zero-day attacks targeting Google Chrome users. That's CVE 2025-6558. It's an incorrect validation of untrusted input in the Angle, the almost native graphics layer engine open-source graphic abstraction layer, which processes GPU commands and translates OpenGL ES API calls to Direct3D, Metal, Vulkan, and OpenGL processes. This was discovered by the Google Threat Analysis Group and Vlad Stalarov and Clement Lesenge, a team of security experts dedicating to defending Google customers against state-sponsored attacks, discovered this CVE and reported it to the Google Chrome team, which was patched. And now Apple released a WebKit security update to address this vulnerability in iOS 18.6 for iPhones and iPads, macOS Sequoia 15.6 for macOS running Sequoia, iPadOS 17.7.9er for the iPad Pro 12.9er inch second generation, TV OS 18.6, Vision OS 2.6, and Watch OS 11.6. So you want to make sure you get those patched up. Palo Alto paid $25 billion to acquire identity security company CyberArk. Wow. Who negotiated the deal? I don't think CyberArk's worth $25 billion. They're a publicly traded company that posts negative PE ratios in some cases, and it's driven by near zero earnings per share for the longest time. In fact, according to a search I did on Perplexity, when I asked for CyberArk's PE ratio, they say that other reputable sources like companies' market cap report the trailing 12-month PE ratio as negative at negative 235, meaning the company is overvalued. Like a good PE ratio to invest in is anywhere between 14 and 16. A lot of companies are overvalued at 50, 60, 70. You'll see some of the top companies at even hundreds. However, if you want to invest in a good, solid stock, you look at a PE, and this isn't investment advice, but it's kind of like the lesson. You want to go at PE ratio around anywhere between 14 and 16. Those are good companies. They have a lot of upside, especially if they're trending upwards. CyberArk's not one of those companies. It's not. Their PE ratio varies from NA, not available, to negative. I mean, that's just the case here. Palo Alto spending $25 billion to acquire the company. Overpaid. I'm going to just say that. They overpaid significantly. Significantly overpaid. 100% overpaid. I'm kind of really curious about Palo Alto. I'm going to reach out to the team there. I want to get them on an interview. I want to ask their acquisition strategy. I'll tell you why. They did a deal with IBM last year on QRadar. And anyone who's a practitioner looks at QRadar and says, that's an outdated SIM. It's not valid today. You've got other, better, way more efficient SIMs. So Palo Alto's kind of taking those broken tools and it's acquiring them, but for what purpose? And now CyberArk hasn't, like, they had a great product at one point, but they really haven't advanced that much. I mean, I remember doing a POC with CyberArk in 2022. So 3 years ago. Maybe the product's changed in 3 years. Maybe they've moved night and day in 3 years, and I'm completely wrong here, and I'm willing to eat my words on it. But the deal is CyberArk shareholders will receive $45 in cash for every share they hold, and then they'll get 2.2005 shares of Palo Alto Networks common stock for each CyberArk share. So, okay, look, Palo Alto knows something, maybe I don't, and I'm willing to admit I don't know everything, but wow. Okay, we'll see. We'll see. Finally, CISA Director Sean Planke's nomination has cleared the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee in a 9-6 vote. He'll now go to the full Senate where he'll get confirmed, and he'll enter his role as the director of CISA, vowing to restore workforce where needed and continue the mission of CISA without the political partisanship that was introduced by the two former directors. So good for Sean. Can't wait for you to step into the role. Really excited. And with that being said, thank you all for tuning in. That's it for our show today. The weekly summary will be available tomorrow on our website at cyberhubpodcast.com. Make sure you check it out there. And then again, next week, Hacker Summer Camp show will still run at the same time, so make sure you check it out. Have a great rest of your day, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning in, and most importantly, stay cyber.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.